Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to a Flawed Man's channel where I'm sitting here giving you the reading of the Bible, among other things on this channel. Happy New Year, like I said, and welcome to a stream where I'm not going to be giving my opinions in such a dour meat and it's such a dour way. Um, I know that yesterday or earlier this morning I put a stream out there. Yeah, kind of airing a grievance that I'd seen with society in general. And I'm not saying this is an apology or that I regret doing it, but this is that was on kind of a low note, a little bit more critical, and this is not. I just want to be more positive in this one. This one be negative in the first one and be positive in this one, right? Um, that's just where we're going to be at today. But we are going to be tackling kind of a heavy topic because, look, it's the Old Testament. It's full of heavy topics, especially when we're talking about Moses up on Sinai. He has just gone over the Ten Commandments with the Israelites. So there's going to be some heaviness here, but there's going to be obviously some rejections. Now, again, this is a Flawed Man of God's channel. My name is Stuart Davis. I am a nobody. I'm a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I am not a pastor. I am not a biblical scholar. Um, I'm not an expert in Christianity in any way other than I've just been one all my life. So what I'm here to do is just offer exposure. These are my thoughts, feelings, and opinions on things. Um, just to let you know that this is what you get. Oftentimes, when you are joining a community, you will get folks with their own opinions and their own takes on things as they try to get an better understanding of their life as a Christian. And it is a never-ending process. I've been, like I said, a Christian for my entire life. That is 38 years so far, though that will be changing soon, I'm sure. And one of the things that you might take away from this is that we are not all that different from other folks who are not Christians. This is not some sort of weird cult. This is a lifestyle. We face the same challenges as everybody else day in and day out. The difference is we put our faith in God. We put our faith in our eternal existence, in the belief that Jesus Christ came and died for our sins, and we are trying to live a life more in line with the way that He would like us to do it. That's your difference. So, what that means is we will go through the Bible, and I'm going to just kind of give my reaction to things, and you can react in your own way. I've got comments lined up. I will respond to them if they come up, especially because I don't have that big of a following right now. So so you will get specific attention if a comment is rendered. But yes, what I want to do is understand if you have a comment or some sort of input, any type of question. I might be able to answer your question. I might be able to identify that I have the same questions myself. Don't know. Won't know until you ask it. Otherwise, if you like what you're hearing, like and subscribe. Share this with your friends or anybody else that you think that might be interested in what I have to say, or might need to hear what I have to say. Maybe they need to hear from somebody who's going through the life right now. I hope you. And so, with that said, I hope you've all are having a good New Year so far. We did have some celebrities not make it to down that final stretch. I think the most notable one was Betty White and John Madden, among some other ones. And we're all on that march, right? We're all trying to make it as long as we can. Looking forward to 2022. I have a lot of content that I'm trying to line up, at least for the early. I want to really, grow the content of this channel and give you things that are worthwhile to listen to. Not just the Bible, which is obviously very, very worthwhile, but can be a bit of a dry subject. But give you some content to really chew on. Get some other guests on here, and give this channel the the due service that it deserves. So that'll be coming up. We next Monday at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. My first guest and only guest so far, Eric Roland, will be back on here, and we are going to be talking about the uh, the 12 tribes of Israel, the founders of them, Jacob's sons, and kind of just go into the identity that each of them have and what that means for the tribes. Because I've always had felt that when Jacob, and we've already covered this, when Jacob was on his deathbed and he was blessing, prophesying, do whatever call it whatever you will, about his sons, it kind of makes it feel like he's not just talking about his kids, but he's talking about the generations that will follow his kids, and those become again the tribes of Israel. And right now, where we're walking and or where we're talking through um, Exodus and Moses leading these 12 tribes through the desert, and where they go once they get to the promised land, once Israel is established, once Judah is established, there are kind of some personality quirks within those tribes that come into play. So I'm gonna have Eric Roland on here. He's a great conversationalist, great person to come on. And look, let's face it, this channel is better when it's not just me talking. It's good when I have somebody else on here collaborating with me, and from what I experienced in our first venture together, is that Eric is a great and very complimentary person with me, where he is more based in apologetics, something I believe highly in, but no, I'm not as familiar with. And he is more educated. Now, you might not agree with the things he says. That's fine. You don't have to. But again, I will tell you what he says. Even if you don't agree with it, will get you thinking. If not, just to think about why you think he might be wrong. You never know where that line of thinking might take you. So that with all that wrapped up, we can now get into the reading. I am going to sitting here and reading. I'm trying to do this wrapped up better than I have in the past, but instead I end up just being a boomer about it. All right, that's shared. Still faster than it was doing. So let's get into Exodus 21 again. Right now, where we left off, Moses is on Mount Sinai, communing with God, the great and powerful creator of literally everything. And he's been given the 10 Commandments. He has discussed this. We discussed this. The 10 Commandments, very widely recognized, and for the most part, are still part of our daily lives. Though there are some that have been kind of set aside by our society in general. Not Christianity, though some parts of Christianity have kind of gone that way. We do have different denominations that I worry have been a little complacent, have sacrificed their principles for either better attendance or feeling better about themselves, being more accepting, adjusting to society as opposed to trying to be the standard and trying to set the standard themselves. The 10 Commandments, FYI, are never overturned by Jesus. Jesus does kind of throw a couple of other rules kind of in out of whack. At least it seems that way. That's going to be another topic of discussion. But what he definitely holds true to is that God's rules are important. As if you need that type of reminder when the ultimate being in existence on any plan in any dimensional sense gives you specific instructions. Don't kill. Don't bear false witness. Don't steal. Don't take his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath. These are all things. Don't commit adultery. Don't cheat on people. Don't let jealousy overcome you because of what your neighbor or your friend has. Simple and easy rules to live by, right? But as you probably know, as I am painfully aware, living by rules and being flawed people, that we being the flawed people that we are, and it's not as easy to just listen, even though it seems that way. And it probably is that way. We just can't get over ourselves. We can't get out of our own way. But it doesn't end with the Ten Commandments, which is kind of the funny line where, in History of the, if any of you are Mel Brooks fans, the History of the Universe or History of the World Part One, where Mel Brooks is playing Moses and he comes down and he goes, "I got 15," and then he drops one of the tablets and he goes, and it breaks. And he goes, "10 Commandments." There are more rules and more instructions that come into play, and the what we're going to read tonight is going to go into some of the instructions, some clarifications, just some guidelines here. We're not meaning guidelines like there's a choice, but just instructions. Here's the sense of what these rules mean. And it's going to be a little. This might be a little long, but for this episode, but it is what it is. Hebrew servants, if you, or I'm sorry, chapter 21. These are the laws you are to set before them. Hebrew servants. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he is to serve you for 6 years. But in the 7th year, he shall go free without paying anything. If he comes alone, he is to go free alone. But if he has a wife when he comes, she is to go with him. If his master gives him a wife and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children still belong to her master, and only the man shall go for free. All right, so immediately we start off with a hot button issue, it seems like here. We're talking about servitude, and you can bundle that in with indentured servitude. You can call that slavery. We've got some interesting points here. This will hit on a lot of some raw feelings for some folks. Slavery in the Bible is tacitly tolerated with certain guidelines. And we are not talking about treating somebody as if they are pure property. No, we all belong to God. We don't belong to each other. However, there is an accounting in in, in this servitude that the Bible seems to, like I said, seems to tolerate it. Look, if you're going to do this, you need to do it in a way that is humane and is respectful to the person who is serving and serving under you. Because this is a person who now you not only kind of control a lot of what goes on in their life, but that also makes you responsible for them. And so that means that you're not that doesn't mean that you are given to treat them however you want, because that's a reflection on you. God has we all serve God, and if you would like to be treated by God in the same way that you treat your servants, um, you need to exude that kind of attitude. Not doing that doesn't sit well with God. So he's basically saying, look, if you're gonna have a servant, he specifies Hebrew in this case. If you're gonna have a servant, it's only gonna be for 6 years, and in that 7th year, you can let him go. He's not buying his way out, because we have a lot of times where the servant is here because he's in debt for some reason, or he is, you know, put something. He's in dire straits, and he needs to enter the service because he doesn't really have any other options. This is not to be an indefinite um, status, and he is allowed to go after 6 years, and he doesn't have to buy his way out. His service has worked has stood for what it is. But it does say if he leaves with what he came in with. So like if he has a wife, he gets to leave with that wife. But if the master gave him his wife, then he doesn't get to keep him when he goes. I don't know in what context that actually means. It doesn't seem like it gives any context here where, is he still married to her, or or are they not married anymore? What it makes sense to me is they're still married, but she's still in service to the master. So probably not talking about concubines. Children, probably the same thing. But if the servant declares, I love my master, and my wife and children do not want to go free, then his master must take him before the judges. He shall take him to the door or the doorpost and pierce his ear with an owl. Then he will be his servant for life. So there is a way where you can say, look, and this is again, this is the difference between the impressions we're given of slavery because of what was going on in the South in America up until the 1860s is not what is going on with the Bible. That is not a tolerable facet of Christianity or Judaism. This is not what God wants. We're talking about something that's a little bit more voluntary. So, if you're a servant in this case, you're being provided for by the master, and in turn, you're doing what you're supposed to do and doing what the master says. It's almost like a job. But here he says, "Look, time is up, but I don't want to. I don't want to leave service. I want to stay in it. You get an earring, basically. You get your ear pierced, and that marks you as a servant for life. But that's your choice at that point. Now, if a man sells his daughter as a servant, she is not to go free as male servants do. Misogyny! If she does not please the master who has selected her for himself, he must let her be redeemed. He has no right to sell her to foreigners because he has broken faith with her. If he selects her for his son, he must grant her the rights of a daughter. If he marries another woman, he must not deprive the first one of her food, clothing, and marital rights. If he does not provide her with these three things, she is to go free without any payment of money. This is very confusing. First part's pretty straightforward. Man sells his daughter for whatever reason. I don't know what circumstances will drive a man to do that, but um, the women aren't treated as equals in the in Hebrew culture at this point, and in culture in general, in the world. If she does not please the master who has selected her for himself, he must let her be redeemed. So I think that means he needs to let her go. He has no right to sell her to foreigners because he has broken faith with her. So he bought her, but he's not going to choose him for himself. He can't just sell her to foreigners. Does that mean he can sell her to neighbors, to other Hebrews? Sounds like it. If he selects her for a son, he must grant her the rights of a daughter. So basically, if a man sells his daughter to another dude, the other dude, he's not going to marry her for himself, or he's not taking her into his household for himself. He's giving her to his son. If he does that, she becomes a daughter-in-law. If he marries another woman, he must not provide the first one of her food, clothing, and marital rights. If he does not provide her with these things, she is to go free without any payment of money. Okay, so he buys her as a servant, but he doesn't really want to marry her, or he doesn't want to, he doesn't intend to do these things and keep her as his domesticated wife. He is still to provide for her, and if he doesn't, she goes free. So the responsibility again. This is kind of that. I want somebody coming up. The way I would put this is, being a master comes with responsibilities. You don't just get to own somebody, and you don't own somebody in that case. You are responsible. You become responsible for someone, and that comes with specific rules. I think that you're supposed to treat the fact that you're supposed to treat them humanely goes without saying. That is God's intention for all of us to kind of do that. But there are certain responsibilities that come. You have to provide for these folks, and if you do not, you don't get to be their master anymore. So you're not locked in there like we see in the traditional understanding of slavery as we look at it today. where you literally are owned by another person. That's not what's going on here. And I don't think that there's anywhere in the Bible where that's actually condoned. But servitude, indentured servitude, slavery does exist in the Bible, and it is addressed but not condemned. Behavior is condemned. Behavior with the servant is condemned. But again, we're all servants of God. So in a way, how could he condemn something that we experience anyway? Personal injuries. All the attorney's ears pop up. Anyone who strikes a person with a fatal blow is to be put to death. That's eye for an eye right there. However, if it is not done intentionally, but God lets it happen, they are to flee to a place I will designate. But if anyone schemes and kills somebody deliberately, that person is to be taken from my altar and put to death. Okay, so premeditated murder here, which was, as we discussed the other night, against one of the ten commandments, right? Um, but if it's unintentional, if it's a involuntary manslaughter or just an accident, uh, that you are to doesn't necessarily sound like banishment, but you're supposed to go to a place where kind of a sanctuary. You go to a sanctuary where you are free from, you are not around the family of the people who you wronged, but at the same time, you do not have to live in worry of this, live in worry that somebody will come back seeking revenge, which sounds like a really simple idea. It sounds almost like kind of like witness protection, but without all the anonymity. It's just a sanctuary area where you go, and you're not a witness, not just a witness. You're actually a perpetrator. Better than going being put to death. Anyone who attacks their father, or mother is to be put to death. This one's a difficult one, especially any of you who have had difficult relationships with your parents. This one's a difficult one. If any of you are the subject of abuse, I don't think this is as cut and dry as it sounds. I could be wrong, but this is more along the lines of, hey, if you strike your father or mother as an adult for just because you're not getting your way, then put to death. Oh, sorry, I did this wrong. Oh no, attacks their mother and father is to be put to death. Okay. Anyone who kidnaps someone is to be put to death, whether the victim has been sold or is still in the kidnapper's possession. Oh, kidnapping. Okay, I'm cool with that. I'm a little bit less forgiving than others. Kidnapping is stealing somebody, right? Anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. That's a tough one for me. Not that I disagree with it. No, I don't know about disagreeing. That you shouldn't curse your father or mother, but I have been in, I have a bit of a potty mouth, and I am a argumentative person, and I come from an argumentative family. So there has been times where I've been in said arguments, and I've let one fly at one of my parents. Not both at the same time that I remember, but definitely has been both of them in one instance or another. It's not something I'm proud of. It's not something I try to justify. So I would be a dead man at this point. If people quarrel and one person hits another with a stone or with their fist, and the victim does not die but is confined to bed, the one who struck the blow will not be held liable if the other can get up and walk around outside with the staff. However, the guilty party must pay the injured person for any loss of time and see that the victim is completely healed. So we're talking about personal liability here. Pretty straightforward. Um, this is not murder. It doesn't sound like really attempted murder, but someone getting injured as a result of a fight or a disagreement. It says stone or their fist, so basically something that they wouldn't necessarily intend to kill somebody with. and the person gets hurt pretty bad, you won't be held liable if they can get better, right? So if you give somebody a concussion and they're out for a few days, but they get back up and they're walking around, you just gotta pay them. You gotta compensate them for the time that they were out. They were out of work or out of being able to provide for their family. Anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result. But they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. All right, so now I sound like a bit of a jerk. I need to make a bit of an idiot after this because the slave is their property. Um, this is a slave, this male or female slave. You beat them with a rod if they die, and they die. You would be punished, but it doesn't say how they are to be punished. And this gets into that kind of tricky thing when we talk about the Bible, Bible's addressing of slavery, which to us as a culture now, it is reprehensible. It is something that we just don't abide by. However, it does exist today, not so much, not anywhere near as big as proliferate. It's not as widespread as it used to be. But again, in biblical times, it was very widespread, and it does say the slave is their property. And I just finished saying that it doesn't view them as property. I think that we have something lost in translation here. This will be, and come to think about it, I mentioned Eric Roland earlier in the stream. He has actually done a lot of digging into this, and I've listened to what he's had to say on the matter. Love to get him on here so he can rehash that out. That'll be another collaborative effort for us where he can get on here and talk about it, because it is a hot button issue. It's a hot button issue that hits people very, very raw. If people are fighting and if people are fighting and hit a pregnant woman and she gives birth prematurely, but there's no serious injury, the offender must be fined whatever the woman's husband demands and the court allows. But if there is serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. This is not just for Hammurabi. This is for the Hebrews. So I guess if I don't know what you do if she gives birth prematurely and as a result of the injury, the child is mentally disabled. Do we beat you until you're mentally disabled? An owner who hits a male or female slave in the eye and destroys it must let the slave go free to compensate for the eye. And the owner who knocks out the tooth of a male or female slave must let the slave go free to compensate for the tooth. So, very complicated here, right? We were just talking about, hey, you can beat them with a rod because they're your property. But I think this is mostly this is not literally just an eye or just a tooth, but literally any way that you maim one of your slaves, you've basically lost your ability to keep them anymore. They have won their freedom at that point by your inability to be a good caretaker for them. So again, like I said, that slavery is a very weird thing in the way it's addressed in Christianity. It's just odd, and I think it's mostly odd for us because we don't understand it. It is anathema to us. We don't understand why anybody would want to own somebody else, and we don't abide by it. If a bull gores a man or woman to death, the bull is to be stoned to death, and its meat must not be eaten. But the owner of the bull will not be held responsible. However, the bull has the habit of goring and the owner has been warned, but has not kept it penned up, and it kills a man or woman, the bull is to be stoned, and its owner also is to be put to death. Why don't you just put the owner in the pen with the bull and just let it get killed? However, if payment is demanded, the owner may redeem his life by the payment of whatever is demanded. This law also applies if the bull gores a son or daughter. If the bull gores a male or female slave, the owner must place 30 shekels of silver and to the master of the slave, and the bull is to be stoned to death. So the bull never gets out of this well. He always dies. He never even gets eaten. But not a whole lot of, the owner can buy his way out of being stoned with him. They are not necessarily held liable if this is just two knuckleheads getting in there, um, teasing a bull, and they end up getting gored by it. This is what we're looking at here. I'd love to. This is almost something I'd love to get a lawyer involved in this. Maybe I know a couple of them. I know a couple of them. I know one. I'm actually actively trying to get on this show. This would be a really good thing to kind of just go over with. But it looks like to me that this is civil litigation here, and then some criminal part too, if there's some criminal negligence on behalf of the bull owner. Again, the slave, eh, 30 shekels, 30 shekels. That's all you get. If anyone uncovers a pit or digs one and fails to cover it, and an ox or a donkey fall into it, the one who opened the pit must pay the owner for the loss and take the dead animal in exchange. Again, civil liability here. If anyone's bull injured someone else's bull and it dies, two parties are to sell the live one and divide both the money and the dead animal equally. However, if it was known that the bull had a habit of goring and the owner did not keep it penned up, the owner must pay animal for animal and take the dead animal in exchange. So again, liabilities here. Is there negligence involved? Is there fault to be had here? If there's not, what do we need to do to kind of make both folks whole? Protection of property. Yeah. All libertarians. Yeah. Protection of property. Protect my property. Don't violate the NAP, right? Whoever steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it must pay back 5 head of cattle for the ox and 4 sheep for the sheep. If a thief is caught breaking in at night and is struck a fatal blow, the defender is not guilty of bloodshed. But if it happens after sunrise, the defender is guilty of bloodshed. Wait, look. Oh, okay. It's because he's a thief. He's not because it's a home invasion. It's because the guy is breaking in. You don't know what they're there for. You don't know what they're trying to do. They could be there to kill you. So if you do it at night, you're good. If not, if you do it in broad daylight, you're guilty. Anyone who steals must certainly make restitution, but if they have nothing, they must be sold to pay for their theft. If the stolen animal is found alive and in their possession, whether ox or donkey or sheep, they must pay back double. Okay, so we get that, and this is another reason why a Hebrew might find himself enslaved or in servitude to another Hebrew is because maybe he was stealing from him. Now, was he stealing because he just had nothing to him? Because it sounds like that. They have nothing and they needed something to eat. They need something to sell, just so they had money to make it. Now the other person is responsible for them. And perhaps they want to stay a servant for the rest of their life because they don't want to go back to a life of, poverty, abject poverty. If anyone grazes their livestock in a field or a vineyard and lets them stray and they graze in someone else's field, the offender must make restitution from the best of their own field or vineyard. If a fire breaks out and spreads into thorn bushes so that it burns shocks of grain or standing grain or the whole field, the one who started the fire must make restitution as you should. Daggone arson. If anyone gives a neighbor silver or goods for safekeeping and they are stolen from the neighbor's house, the thief, if caught, must pay back double. But if the thief is not found, the owner of the house must appear before the judges and they must determine whether the owner of the house has laid hands on the other person's property. In all cases of illegal possession of an ox, a donkey, a sheep, a garment, or any lost property about which somebody said, "This is mine," both parties are to bring their cases before the judges. The one whom the judges declare guilty must pay back double to the other. If anyone gives a donkey, an ox, or a sheep, or any other animal to their neighbor for safekeeping, and it dies or is injured or is taken away while no one is looking, the issue between them will be settled by the taking of an oath before the Lord that the neighbor did not lay hands on the other person's property. The owner is to accept this and no restitution is required. But if the animal was stolen from the neighbor, restitution must be made to the owner. If it was torn to pieces by a wild animal, the neighbor shall bring in the remains as evidence and shall not be required to pay for the torn animal. If anyone borrows an animal from their neighbor and it is injured or dies while the owner is not present, they must make restitution. But if the owner is with the animal, the borrower will not have to pay. If the animal was hired, the money paid for the hire covers the loss. All right, so again, we're looking at a lot of property rights, and most of the property rights that we deal with here have to do with livestock because that's a big part of the economy. It's a big part of your value, your wealth is the animals that you keep. Because what do we use animals for? For a multitude of things, making clothes, food, very important, um, sacrifices to the Lord, all sorts of things, and you need animals for this. Whether you need your own or you need to get some from somebody else. And so they're wandering the desert. So the property rights, as we understand property, is this is the land that I own, is less of an issue as it is, um, you know, personal possessions. But what we see here, uh, this is not something that might ring very familiar to folks who are more more familiar with uh, city life because you don't see this a lot. However, if you've grown up in a rural area, this is something that will be much more relatable because the stuff goes on. The stuff goes on, and not in the old school way that it used to, but there you have issues that brought up with losing animals or somebody stealing an animal or somebody graze taking your livestock to graze on somebody else's property or vice versa. The stuff goes on. And so this is a little bit more of you need to understand what's going on and what these folks are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. They're not dealing with septic issues or landlords, stuff like that. It's a little bit different society that we are looking at in Exodus. If a social responsibility, if a man seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price and she shall be his wife. If her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he must still pay the bride price for virgins. So, guess what? You're paying one way or the other. Now you might get something out of it, you might not. Do not allow a sorceress to live. Uh, all the uh, all the Wiccan ladies out there are probably clutching at pearls right now because they bring this up a lot because this was adhered to as recently as Salem. But do not allow a sorceress to live. There is a lot packed in there into that one, but it is very direct. Do not allow somebody who practices magic, specifically a woman who practices magic, to live. You catch her doing it, she dies. Anyone who has sexual relations with an animal is to be put to death. I mean, right? Who's raping animals? It happens. You're supposed to kill them. Um, and this one stacks right underneath witches. Whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. Do not again, very look, God is he says it himself. God is a jealous God. He does not want he created us. He created the whole universe. He created the fabric of existence that we know and see and that our ancestors all the way back to the beginning have known. He does not want us giving thanks or attributing that to some god that doesn't exist or that might be a demon in disguise. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you feel the same way? Do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner, for you were foreigners in Egypt. We talk about this hits on a political point that's kind of very near and dear to our hearts today when it comes to immigration. How do we treat immigrants? This one just says mistreat or oppress a foreigner. Does that mean you have to welcome them in and they have to be part of your society, be within your borders? Or does it mean, hey, we are not going to kill you, we're not going to beat you, throw you into slavery or anything, but we're not going to let you in here any further. We're gonna feed you, clothe you, and then send you back on your way. Please don't come back. Catch and release. This is a hot button issue. Again, there's you have to understand. You can't look at this and try to make what's being said fit your political beliefs, because that's not what this is. You need to make sure that your political beliefs revolve around the word, not otherwise. Because if you do the opposite, you're wrong, and you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up to be getting a long lecture to God in judgment. I'm assuming to be like, you thought this, and you treated some people the way I did told you not to treat them. And I'm not endorsing what I have my own political beliefs. I have my own opinions about it. But again, my political beliefs always come second. My faith comes first. So if I feel like I'm wrong in the matter, I need to just shut up. And I'm not endorsing that verse 21 says one thing or another. I know that there are folks, some very important folks, as far as the Pope, as far high up as the Pope in the Christian community, who use this as evidence to further their political agenda. And there are other people who are on the other side of that debate who interpret this differently. It's a difficult thing, but look, bottom line here, and the way it relates to you in a very practical sense, be a good be a good host. Um, do that. Believe in what we in Virginia call your Southern hospitality. Be a good person when people come are at your doorstep, and are in need. Do what you can for them, and and do right by them. And he's reminding them because they were foreigners in Egypt, and that's a good thing for you to remember yourself. Is you can always find yourself as maybe the outsider. Maybe you are the foreigner. Maybe you are cast out or banished from your home, and you're just looking for help. You're looking for someone. You're looking for some sanctuary for a time. You're looking for just a place to rest while you get your act together and figure out where you're going to be going next. Whatever. There's there's a lot that people read into that I think isn't there. And like I said, that's not beholden. That's not a red or blue issue specifically. That's a both issue. Do not take advantage of the widow or the fatherless. If you do, and they cry out to me, I will certainly hear their cry. My anger will be aroused, and I will kill you with the sword. Your wives will become widows, and your children fatherless. So do not take advantage of widows and orphans. If you do and they cry out to me, if you God, that's called piss God off. And if he gets pissed off enough and they cry out to him, guess what? You're going to end up dead, and your wife and your kids are going to be exactly the same as those folks that you were taking advantage of. If you lend money to one of my people among you who is needy, do not treat it like a business deal. Charge no interest. If you take your neighbor's cloak as a pledge, return it by sunset, because that cloak is the only covering your neighbor has. What else can they sleep in? What are they going to sleep in, right? When they cry out to me, I will hear, for I am compassionate. God gets a little real in this one. If you take your neighbor's cloak as a pledge, return it by sunset, because their cloak is the only covering your neighbor has. What else can they sleep in? That means this is probably going on. This is probably going on that they're not doing these things. But it's a reminder to be compassionate, be understand grace. God has got some very strict rules that come down for people who practice evil, whether it's murder or um, or you know inhumane treatment of other people, negligence, criminal negligence, witchcraft. There are some things that are done just out of just disregard for other human life and other human well-being. And he punishes that with death. But at the same time, folks who are down on their luck, folks who have issues, folks who are defenseless, he isn't an advocate for them, and he is a protector for them, and he expects us to be a protector for them. God's got a lot more grace in the Old Testament than we give him credit for. I mean, he is a very he is a God of action in many times, and he will quick to uh to end a dude's life. But at the same time, he knows what was in their heart at the time, and he's trying to get us to not be that way because we do not know what is in someone's heart. Do not blaspheme God or curse the ruler of your people. Doesn't give a punishment there. He just does. Do not do that. Of course, that you probably might end up dead by God's own action. Do not hold back offerings from your granaries or your vats. You must give me the firstborn of your son. Do the same with your cattle and sheep. Let them stay with their mothers for 7 days, but give them to me on the 8th day. You are to be my holy people, so do not eat the meat of an animal torn by wild beasts. Throw it to the dogs. Yeah, just don't do that. Disgusting. Other animals killed it. You don't know why it's lying there. All right, last chapter. Told you this is gonna be running long. We're gonna get every bit of an hour in this thing. I think laws of justice and mercy. You know, I just want to point out here that social responsibility and laws of justice are not together. They're in their own little groups. So don't mix social when you hear social justice put together. Do not spread false reports. Do not help a guilty person by being a malicious witness. Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd. And do not show favoritism to a poor person in a lawsuit. Do not. I try. Look, rioting is wrong. Mob rule is wrong. It is not okay just because other people are doing it. And don't play favorites, even if something's pulling at your heartstrings. If you come across your enemy's ox or donkey wandering off, be sure to return it. Do the right thing. If you see the donkey of someone who hates you down under its load, do not leave it there. Be sure you help them with it. Do the right thing. Do not deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits. Have nothing to do with a false charge, and do not put an innocent or honest person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty. Do the right thing. Do not accept the bribe, for a bribe blinds those who see and twists the words of the innocent. Do the right thing. Do not oppress a foreigner. You yourselves know how it feels to be foreigners because you were foreigners in Egypt. Reiterated here, do not oppress a foreigner. Do the right thing. Sabbath laws. For 6 years you are to sow your fields and harvest the crops. But during the 7th year, let the land lie unplowed and unused. Then the poor among your people may get food from it, and the wild animals may eat what is left. Do the same with your vineyard and your olive garden. Are we talking about crop rotation here? 6 days do your work, but on the 7th day do not work, so that your ox and your donkey may rest, and so that the slave born in your household and the foreigner living among you may be refreshed. Some people take this some people take do not work very literally. That's another bit of content that's coming this way. We're going to discuss the Sabbath and what that means for us, honoring the Sabbath, because it is a 10th commandment. It is something that Jesus reiterates. We are honoring God resting, and I think God wants us to do that because we are mortal beings. We need to rest. We can't work ourselves to death. That's not good for us. That's not good for our families. That's not good for anybody. Be careful to do everything I have said to you. Do not invoke the names of other gods. Do not let them be heard on your lips. Well, yeah. Now you need anything. This is why would this even be a thing? You were in Egypt. You were slaves. God did these things. You saw it. You saw him do these things. You saw them do these things, and you saw them. They cast you out, and they paid you to get out of there because they wanted you gone so bad. And God said that He was going to do it. Cast you out. You see the Red Sea. You see the Red Sea parted by God's chosen person. You walk through the sea with dry feet. You see the Egyptian pursuers. They're crushed as soon as you're done. God's chosen person puts everything back the way he found it. You've seen this. You saw God come. You saw what was going on Mount Sinai. You saw the pillar of fire. You saw the man. You ate the manna. You ate the quail. You drank the water that was blessed so that it was clean. Did all these things. Why on earth would you invoke the name or believe or worship anybody but that God? That's stupidity. And I think that's the difficult thing for a lot of people who are Christians because we're doing all this on faith. You don't need to have faith in anything. You've had it demonstrated right in front of your face. Right in front of your face. Right in front of your face. How unbelievably stupid do you have to be? How unbelievably self-centered do you have to be to think that that makes it okay for you? And we'll end this on a positive. Scroll. My mouse's scroll button is broken, guys. 3 annual festivals. Yay! Everybody likes a party. 3 times a year do you are to celebrate a festival to me. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread for 7 days. Eat bread you made without yeast, as I commanded you. Do this at the appointed time of the month of Aviv, for in that month you came out of Egypt. No one is to appear before me empty-handed. Celebrate the festival of harvest with the first fruits of the crops you sow in your field. Celebrate the festival of ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather your crops from the field. 3 times a year, all the men are to appear before the sovereign Lord. Do not offer the blood of a sacrifice to me along with anything containing yeast. The fat of my festival offerings must not be kept until morning. Bring the first fruits of your soil to the house of the Lord your God. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. I'd ask you not to do that just as a personal preference. Hey, have a party, but make sure, and this goes all the way back to Cain and Abel, bring me the best of what you got. Separate the best of what you got. Use this as a token of thanks. This is me telling you what the best way to say thank you to me is to separate the best of what I've blessed you with and sacrifice it to me. And I'm saying me, this is what God would be saying. This makes sense. This makes sense. So we got some parties. And then we're going to close with this. See, God's angel to prepare the way. See, I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I've prepared. Pay attention to him and listen to what he says. Do not rebel against him. He will not forgive your rebellion, since my name is in him. If you listen carefully to what he says and do all that I say, I will be an enemy to your enemies, and I will oppose those who oppose you. My angel will go ahead of you and bring you into the land of the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hivites, and Jebusites, and I will wipe them out. Do not bow down before other gods or worship them or follow their practices. You must demolish them and break their sacred stones into pieces. Worship the Lord your God, and his blessing will be on your food and water. I will take away sickness from among you, and none will miscarry or be barren in your land. I will give you a full lifespan of 125 years. So we learned that already. Notice more foreshadowing. I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I've prepared. Now he's thought, and here we're referring to the promised land of Israel, land of Canaan. Or he's also talking about Jesus Christ. And if you do these things, then this is God talking about prosperity specifically to the Jews here or to the Hebrews here. Just do these things and everybody's going to be great. Everybody's going to be great health and everything. I will send my terror ahead of you and throw into confusion every nation you encounter. I will make all of your enemies turn their backs and run. I will send the hornet ahead of you to drive out Hivites. Oh, the hornet to drive out the Hivites, Canaanites, and Hittites out of your way. But I will not drive them out in a single year because the land would become desolate and the wild animals too numerous for you. Little by little, I will drive them out before you until you have increased enough to take possession of the land. So we're going to do this step by step. God's methodical. Look, God's methodical. I will establish your borders from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, and from the desert to the Euphrates River. I will give into your hands the people who live in the land, and you will drive them out before you. Do not make a covenant with them or their gods. Do not let them live in your land, or they will cause you to sin against me, because the worship of their gods will certainly be a snare to you. He's warning them. He's warning them. Why is he warning them? Is he possibly concerned about the fact that they might do this thing? Why would they do this thing? They've seen all these signs. Of course they know that God's here. He's sitting there communing with one of them right there on the mountain for all of them to see, right? They all know, right? There's no reason to believe anybody else. I'm sure, I am sure that we are not going to have to worry about the Israelites not worshiping any gods other than our God, right? I guess we're going to have to find out. So, we're at 57 minutes right now. This is a long one. Hey, look, you think this is long? Just wait until we get into Leviticus. Leviticus is going to be so dry. I'm hoping by the time that we get to the end of the Old Testament, I've got quite a following. But I'm wondering if I'll lose what little subscribers I have when it comes time to go over Leviticus, because people are going to be like, this is too much. I can't deal with it. No viewership whatsoever. It's so dry and it is so boring, but it's important. It's important because it's incredibly important at the time, but it's also important for us to understand, what God's instructions to the Israelites were. All right, folks, that'll wrap this thing up for the evening. I hope you all have had a great time listening to me drone on and on about these rules. But as we can see, there's a lot of similarities to what's going on now legally, what we have set up, and what God set up for the Israelites, and what he's telling Moses in this case. Why? Because our founding fathers and much of culture and civilization has been derived from these simple values. Amen. Amen. All right, folks, have a good evening. I'm going to wrap this up quickly. We'll talk again tomorrow night. Like I said, I've got more stuff. I've got good content coming. Not that this isn't good. Can be a little dry. It is a little bit one-dimensional, and that it completely revolves around the Bible, and we're just reading it. Love to get more people on here. So in the meantime, you guys stay safe, and I love you. Just keep coming back. God bless. God bless.